It was one man's vision: to build the ultimate ride which would thrill millions. In the late 1980s, Jeffrey Thompson, managing director of Blackpool Pleasure Beach, vowed to show the world that his amusement park would scale new heights of daring. In 1994, the dream became a reality. The year the tallest roller coaster in the world came to Britain. Blackpool deserves only the best. And in the world of roller coasters, the finest are designed in America. By using the latest computer-aided design technology, Aerodynamics of Utah began creating a unique roller coaster, simply taller and faster than anything ever seen before. With planning approval from Blackpool Council and the consent of the Civil Aviation Authority, the groundwork could begin. And who better to perform the first turf-cutting ceremony than Britain's tallest and fastest men? 7 feet 6 inch Chris Greener and Olympic champion Linford Christie. The 235-foot roller coaster will be every inch a national landmark. This artist's impression shows how it would dwarf Nelson's column. Prime Minister John Major admitted on a visit to Blackpool he was inspired by the concept, and yes, he'd love to ride it. But first, the foundations had to be laid. Other amusement parks have built their rides on greenfield sites. Here, it wasn't so simple. Somehow, the giant roller coaster's roots would have to be put down alongside the existing 140 attractions in the world's most ride-intensive amusement park. The £1.5 million contract for foundations was awarded to Shepherd Construction Limited of Manchester. The company had to overcome enormous obstacles to sink more than 300 piles. Even when they'd avoided water pipes and electricity cables, they faced the problem of sand. In some areas, they had to dig 45 feet down to find a firm base. The piles were reinforced with steel, and 5,000 tons of concrete was then poured in. Although everything possible was done to save existing attractions, the famous 170-foot space tower, erected in the 70s, had to be dismantled to make way for the ride of the 90s. But it has a new home at Frontierland in Morecambe. With the design and route of the roller coaster agreed, work could begin on the superstructure. The 3D simulations and geometry calculations were supplied on computer disk by Aerodynamics and Manchester-based consulting engineers Allott and Lomax. These were then converted into working drawings. From these, accurate plans could be drawn up, from which Watson Steel of Bolton could then make the 12,000 individual pieces of steel. They'd make 2,600 tons in all, as part of a contract worth £6 million. The company's vast construction halls turned out enough steel which, if laid end to end, would have stretched 35 miles, or from their Bolton factory to Blackpool itself. Here, vast monopod columns, tower legs, stanchions, turns and supports were made. All the steelwork, including the red track sections made separately in Southampton and Scotland, were then painted with high-performance protective coatings to guard against Blackpool's abrasive weather. There wasn't room at Blackpool Pleasure Beach to take all the steelwork at once, so it was delivered to nearby Blackpool Airport. There, the individual pieces of steel were assembled into larger sections. Gradually, like a giant puzzle, the structures began to take shape. Last checks were made before the steel could be loaded for final delivery to the Pleasure Beach. The illuminations lengthened the summer season at Blackpool, and not until November are the gates of the Pleasure Beach closed to the public. Faced with the shortest winter closure of any amusement park in Europe, contractors had to erect the roller coaster in record time. Some of the biggest loads ever seen on our roads began to inch their way towards the Pleasure Beach. Police outriders gave each lorry an escort from the airport. They closed the busy promenade and planned alternative routes for Blackpool's busy traffic. The world's tallest roller coaster was on the move. A giant crane, at 400 tons, one of the largest in use in Britain, was brought in to lift the heavier sections. Each was lifted in order and with astonishing precision was then lowered onto its waiting foundation. If any of these supports had been more than 20 millimeters out at the bottom, the track section simply wouldn't have fitted at the top. Hour by hour, day by day, week by week, and in all weathers, the roller coaster grew and grew. It had to grow to live up to its new name, the Pepsi Max Big One. Blackpool Pleasure Beach announced a 5-year sponsorship deal with the American soft drinks company worth £1 million, believed to be the first ever sponsorship deal of its kind for a single ride. Also competing for space on the crowded 42-acre site was the roller coaster station. Geoffrey Thompson's architect daughter, Fiona Gilgee, was given a difficult brief: to create a station in the narrowest of locations. She came up with this unique concept, whereby the trains are stacked and changed vertically on a lift mechanism, a stunning design and a spectacular way of saving space. Following the design route of the ride, engineers had to cut through the Big Dipper and the old roller coaster to ease the progress of their new neighbour. Touching up the paintwork requires a head for heights. The world's leading roped access specialists were brought in to coat the bolts and make good any handling damage. Up to 5 layers of protective coatings would be needed. As the winter season drew to an end, the activity intensified. Red track sections began to top the route of the tallest roller coaster ever built on this planet. Geoffrey Thompson believes the Pepsi Max Big One is the most significant single leisure development in Britain since the construction of Blackpool Tower a century ago. He expects it'll attract an extra 1 million visitors to the resort every year. For those who dare to plunge from 235 feet at an angle of 65 degrees and ride its 1-mile circuit at speeds of up to 85 miles an hour, it'll be unbeatable. But don't take our word for it. Try it, if you dare.